Hi guys, Rebecca here. Today is 4/8/2017 and the time is 8:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The date in New Zealand is 4/19/2017 and the time is 12 p.m. Okay, we have a bulletin I'm going to do real quick. We have been keeping New Zealand interactive maps dated for the past 24 hours a day, up to date, and on the website. These are downloadable to your Google Earth. You may use them to look at or study. These are inputted by hand. We also have started doing New Zealand and countries, photos, videos. These photos are sent into the website or Facebook with permission to use or show other countries their beauty and uniqueness. Again, please leave a description and first name to use only along with your permission for the use. Otherwise, they will not be used. Last names will at no time be used. We respect the right to privacy. Also, second, please consider contributing to the fundraiser towards the website and keeping it up. The link is below the video, and as usual, please subscribe and thumb up the videos. Okay, let's take a look at the quakes for the past 2 days. We're going to start April 18th. We're going to start with a 2.9. This quake is over here near Lake Chalice. And this is Porter's Creek Hut. And this is Lothar Creek. Then we're followed by a 1.7, a 1.7, a 1.6, and then a 2.1 at 97 kilometers in depth. And this sits over here near the Broadlands. And this is Lake Taupo here. Our next quake was a 2.3, followed by a 1.6, followed by a 2.1, followed by a 1.9, followed by a 2.2. That was followed by 1.9. The next quake was a 2.4 at 93 kilometers in depth. Now, as you can see, there is also a river area that runs through here, or stream. And that's near Matawa. That was followed by a 2.2, a 2.1, a 1.9, which is followed by a 2.6 at 59 kilometers in depth, which is hitting over here near Pangaroa. Our next quake was a 2.7 at 115 kilometers in depth. This is over here near Tetaronui, Lake Tarawa. And really, Google Earth does no justice for those pictures. Our next quake was a 2.1 at 146 kilometers in depth. And I've taken to starting them into a pink color. That makes it easier to see. And that was over here near Tasman Bay. That was followed by a 2.1, a 2.2, and a 2.0 at 109 kilometers in depth. And that was back here off of the other side of Taupo near Pohipi Road. And if we can look, we also see Maroa is right here. So these are hitting between two different volcanoes. The next one was a 1.5 followed by a 1.8, and that was followed by a 2.3 at 213 kilometers in depth. that is. It's a house. Our next quake was a 1.6, followed by a 1.5, followed by a 2.9, which was followed by a 3.1. The 3.1 was over here off of Isethorpe. That was followed by a 1.6 and then a 2.5 at 104 kilometers in depth. This sits between Tongariro volcano and Rapejo. And if you can see, we have a small swarm going on here, not very big. Very small earthquakes, micro-sized. That was followed by a 3.0 at 112 kilometers in depth. This is off here of a Jacket Island and Tasman. As we can see, it's kind of hilly over here. Our next quake was a 1.9. That was followed by a 3.3. Which is over here near Puhi Puhi. Hang on a second, I have to let the cat in. Come on. Come on. She was scratching at the door telling me, let me in. She's got babies here in the bedroom. That was followed by a 1.0 and then a 2.4 at 209 kilometers in depth. That was off of Billhook Bay. That was followed by a 2.1 at 135 kilometers in depth. If you can tell, this sits near Lake Taupo, or near Taupo Volcano. In Lake Taupo, near Taupo Volcano. And Taupo is a caldera lava dome. Our next earthquake was a 2.5. That was followed by a 1.1, a 1.7, followed by a 2.2 at 122 kilometers in depth. Exactly almost middle of Cook Strait. Our next earthquake that I'm going to look at is a 2.4 at 161 kilometers in depth. This is over here near Hawera. Our next earthquake was a 2.1 at 136 kilometers in depth. This was also at Lake Taupo. Our next earthquake was a 1.6, followed by 1.8, followed by a 0.7, followed by a 2.0, followed by a 2.0, followed by 1.9, which was followed by a 2.0, a 2.3, and a 2.7. That was followed by 1.8, then followed by 1.7 at 123 kilometers in depth. This was over here near Steve Brook, Stanley Brook. Our next quake was a 2.1 at 117 kilometers in depth. This was over here off of Tasman Bay and Cook Strait. Our next quake was a 2.4, followed by a 2.3, which was followed by 1.9, a 1.5, a 1.8, a 1.7, a 2.2, a 2.0, a 1.6, a 1.5, a 1.2, 1.7, and a 0.5, which is followed by a 2.0, 0.4, and a 2.3 at 109 kilometers in depth. And this was over here near Thornton, off the end of North Island. That was followed by a 1.5. Then we had a 4.8 in Fiji at 647 kilometers in depth. Now when I look at this, it looks to me like a volcano. Let's see, it does look like one. An underwater volcano, maybe. Like there's a few here, looks like here. Anyway, the next quake was a 2.2, followed by a 2.7, followed by a 2.2, which was followed by a 2.1, and then a 2.5 at 146 kilometers in depth. And this sits near a mine. As far as I can tell, I think this is a mine. I did look at that one earlier. And this one, I'm not sure what to think of them. And now we move on to April to midnight. We start with a 2.4, a 1.8, a 2.0, a 2.1, and a 2.6 at 176 kilometers in depth, which is over here near Pohokura, which is followed by a 2.2 at 80 kilometers in depth. This is over here off of Karamea and Cook Strait. That was followed by a 1.6, a 1.1, a 2.2, a 2.6, followed by a 2.8, which was followed by a 2.0 at 64 kilometers in depth, which was followed by a 2.5 and a 1.7 at 90 kilometers in depth. Our next quake was a 2.1, followed by a 2.0, which was followed by a 0.7, a 1.2, and a 2.4, which was followed by a 4.0 at 619 kilometers deep in Fiji. And we move on to April 19th. We start with a 1.5, 1.5, 1.8, a 1.9, a 1.6, followed by a 2.7, a 0.5, a 2.3, a 1.5, a 1.7, a 1.3, which was followed by a 2.2 at 92 kilometers in depth. Which hit in the water area. And this is at Camp Bay, North Ford, going towards the end of South Island. That was followed by a 0.4, a 2.6, and then a 1.8 at 85 kilometers in depth, which was followed by a 1.5, a 1.8, and then a 1.4 at 119 kilometers deep. And I'm just looking at these because I think these are wood areas too, but I'm not sure because I'm seeing some other things here this time. That's in Tarara Forest. That was followed by a 1.3, which was followed by a 4.6 at 633 kilometers in depth. That was followed by a 6.0 at 627 kilometers in depth. That was followed by a 2.5 at 112 kilometers in depth. This was over here towards the middle of the island again. That was followed by a 2.9 at 71 kilometers in depth. This is over here near Tequeja. That was followed by a 3.2 at 130 kilometers in depth. Our next quake was a 2.0, followed by a 2.0 at 49 kilometers in depth, followed by a 1.8, followed by a 1.9 at 59 kilometers in depth, followed by a 1.1, a 0.8, a 1.7, and a 2.8 at 46 kilometers in depth. That was followed by a 4.5 at 633 kilometers in depth in Fiji. That's a lot for one area. That was followed by a 2.2 and then a 2.0 at 83 kilometers in depth. And that's Mount Newton. Our next quake was a 2.0, followed by a 1.1, followed by a 0.6, followed by a 2.1, and that ends my update for today. Thank you. Please turn into Dutch Sense for your forecast, and have a nice evening or day, wherever you are.